You know, Christmas is just around the corner. And if you're still thinking what you could get me for Christmas, you could subscribe. Just saying. I'm like, I have the moon for a head. We're going to talk about the results. Which nation is most obsessed with hair loss? Now, in the video I made talking about this, I suggested that if it's not America, then it'd be somewhere in Asia. I sort of feel like there might be a country that wins the prize more than any country in Asia. It could be India. I've looked through all the comments. And maybe this is just me personally feeling this way. Because, I mean, you're voting with your comments. The more people vote. It's just, it's a strong case for India. Our good friend Collector K says this in my video. When it comes to hair loss, which nation is most obsessed with hair loss? There it is. Okay. Collector K, quote, it's India. Because in India, usually people shave their heads fully only when their father or mother dies. It's a Hindu ritual known as Mundan. So it's a bit harder for younger balding guys to completely shave their heads. Okay, that's a very good point. There's also a follow-up. Oh, I said to him, tell me why. You're the second person to say that. I want to know more. To which he responded by saying, quote, there are a large number of hair transplant clinics coming up in India because nobody wants to get bald. Moreover, hair is very much related to good looks in India. You would hardly find a bald Bollywood actor in India, whereas in Hollywood, actors like Vin Diesel and Dwayne Johnson rock the bald look confidently, which has made the bald look cooler in the United States, I guess. Which I think that is almost its own video right there. That in America, being bald is more attractive. And it's not so much that even the genetic makeup of a person as the fact that culturally it's seen as attractive. And I think I need to stop talking about that right now and do a video on that after. So thanks for that actual accidental video that just popped up. So yeah, I do think that is interesting that we have to consider the culture. What does the culture allow as far as being good looking? One more thing about Indians. He says, so I feel that Indians are more obsessed with hair loss than any other. The hair transplant industry is booming in India. You will get hair transplant advertisements everywhere in India. Men with hair are considered more attractive than men without hair. And I would argue in America that's not the case. Gotta save that for another video though. So, and in a personal story I just want to share with everybody watching this video as well. A couple years back, my wife and I were obsessed with this one Indian restaurant. And it was funny because right next door to the Indian restaurant, because it was in one of those like strip malls, was an Indian grocery store. So you could get all of these Indian spices, you could get, you know, incense, you get whatever you want that was from India. And the owner of this place had to be, I'm gonna go with like age 53, 54, somewhere in his 50s. The guy had an obvious wig. It was obvious. I mean, imagine if Donald Trump's hair was an actual wig, not all the hair transplants I guess that he had, but just long and flowy and just perfectly black. And you knew that his age too, like it just didn't match. And you know how when someone has a toupee on, you can kind of tell like around here, how it's just like too thick and then it just gets thin right there. Like it was obvious. Like if you had a lineup, hey, which one of these guys definitely, absolutely is wearing a wig? You'd be like, yep, that guy. That's how bald this guy was, and that's how much of a, that's when I that was the first time I actually noticed. So do Indian men have a high chance of going bald like white European men do? And I think there's definitely truth in that. Now, here's what we got to compare though. We've got India, which is obsessed with hair loss. There's the advertisements, the hair transplants. They're associating hair with being good looking as compared to America that I argue doesn't. Save it for a different video. But then what about Asia? See, Asia is unique in this argument because Asian men typically don't go bald as quickly and as soon as men of European, Jewish, Middle Eastern, and Indian descent people do. So if you're part of the few that does lose your hair soon, there's got to be that much more pressure for you to have hair. So while I want India to win, and I gotta say, even though we could say America is, I'm convinced America is not the most obsessed with hair loss because we already have adapted the concept in modern day that bald and bearded is handsome and all that good stuff. So really, I think it comes down to this. Which nation is more obsessed with hair loss? India or somewhere in Asia? Do we go with the culture in India where even though so many men go bald young, it's not acceptable to be bald because of a religious tradition, and that confuses things up, so that's kind of taboo and off limits or whatever? Or do we go with one of the nations in Asia where you're a freak if you're losing your hair and you definitely stick out with, oh man. Because if you look at Asia, I could see how there'd be more pressure in Asia for you to not lose your hair. It seems like things would be a bit darker, like more intense if you were an Asian man balding compared to an Indian man balding, because so many Indian men do go bald. Okay. I'm gonna go with, I don't want to, but I have to say Asia. I just feel so bad for Asian men that lose their hair. I just think they have more pressure than a man in India. So I'm sorry, that's my final decision. What doesn't matter is what I just said. What does matter is what you say. What do you think of my verdict? That Asian countries are by default more obsessed with hair loss because such a fewer amount of men in Asia lose their hair. Whereas compared in India, it's more common to go bald, but then you've got a religious tradition that gets in the way of it. But still, at least it's normal to lose your hair. What do you think about that? I voted, I gave my decision, but what do you think about it? So are you going to subscribe? That'll be my Christmas present? Yeah, no, yeah.